Ty Lue has officially signed a new contract to be the Clippers head coach for the next 5 years. What do we think of the decision? Was it a good one? Did he deserve it? And what does it say about the team going forward? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Cancun Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA. Just finished my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I talk about every single game of the NBA playoffs and LA Clippers even more. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. I want you to let me know what you think of the decision to sign Ty Lue to a contract extension. And before we do that, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get great deals on tickets, even up to the last minute. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports or anything else. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. But all right, let's get right into it like the Dome. And now it's the Intuit Dome era. Who would be our coach to start the Intuit Dome era? We already knew it was going to be Ty Lue, but there was a lot of talk about he hasn't gotten an extension, this and that. He had one more year on his deal. And the suspense, I mean, there wasn't really much, but the suspense or the conversation was put to an end on Wednesday morning when the Woj bomb, not one of the bigger Woj bombs when it's a coach, but a Woj bomb nonetheless, that, I don't know, if that's not a Woj bomb, what is it, a Woj grenade? Ty Lue has reached a new 5-year contract extension with the Clippers. He will be our coach from the, as far as the contract is concerned. 2024-25 is the first season of it. 2028-29 is the last season of it. So 5 years, $70 million. That's $14 million per year. That's a lot for a head coach. He's making more than a lot of our players. So did he deserve it? I mean, I'm not here to watch a man's pockets and stuff like that. I know I mentioned it in regards to oh, he's making $50 million. He has to perform at this level. That's relative to, there's only one head coach. There's a lot of players on the roster. And when it comes to talking about guys' value, because it hurts the rest of your roster when you have a guy like Paul George, for example, making as much as Kawhi, and he's not giving you the output of Kawhi. When it comes to how much a coach is making, I'm not going to really comment on the number that much. Ty Lue, Woj and Shams, when they tweeted it, they added lines like, one of the best coaches in the league, considered one of the best in the league. And I do think Ty Lue is one of the best. I want to say, I don't know where I would rank him. I wouldn't put him in the top 5, but I would probably try to make a case for top 10. I think there are so many people that are on different sides of the fence with this discussion. And I think there is a raging thing about fans today blaming coaches for everything. And it really is elevated by the amount of stands in basketball discourse. And I'm being 100%, that's my honest truth about it. I think it's not just stands that blame coaches, but we become so married to these players and we just want to blame coaches for every little thing, even though a lot of the people that are blaming coaches don't fully understand the ins and outs and X's and O's of the game of basketball and legitimately believe that they could be better than them coaches, or they're just, it's very easy to coach, or it's blatantly obvious to do what they do. It's extremely difficult to be an NBA coach. As I always mention on this show, I coach at the rec level and middle school level right now. It's the highest level I've coached at. And I obviously learn a lot as well, every single year. Every single season I coach, every new team I coach, I learn a lot of things. I make mistakes and all that, right? Coaching an NBA team is really not as easy as people think. One, the X's and O's knowledge, you got to be at a really, really high level, in my opinion. And then two, the most important thing to me about being an NBA coach is managing the egos on your team of these NBA stars. Because, man, oh man, it's never been worse than now with the money that these guys are making. Guys are player empowerment. You know what I'm saying? Paul George, how many of his friends has he gotten on the team just by saying he wants them? I mean, and Kawhi Leonard, he literally made our whole franchise trade made our franchise trade all our picks for Paul George, essentially for a second star. So these guys get what they want. And the coach, it's a balance between, I guess, holding them accountable, disciplining them, and then also being somebody that they like and they can trust and confide in and believe that has their best interest at heart. In Ty Lue's case, I'm to be honest, my opinion is that I'm pretty neutral on it. I think if the Clippers want to run it back, which is clearly what they're going to do, then there's absolutely no reason to not give Ty Lue an extension. Like, Ty Lue is... You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Even if the Clippers were to retool or rebuild, I would still want Ty Lue in charge. I legitimately just don't think there's as many better coaches than people think. I think Ty Lue's been given a really bad hand in his 4 years as a coach because his number one option can never be healthy. And then when he is healthy, sometimes his number two option isn't healthy. Then they constantly want a point guard. Then he's not on the same page as the front office. That's one thing I kind of want to come to an end. I think that the Lawrence Frank-Ty Lue tandem needs to be over with because there's just been too many reports over the years that they do not have the same vision for this team. Clearly Lawrence Frank had a vision of Wingstop, adding a lot of wings to the team around Kawhi and Paul George. And Ty Lue and the Stars, 2-1-3, have wanted a point guard. And then Ty Lue was okay with Russ, but Lawrence Frank was never okay with Russ. So you bring in Russ, and then you look to replace him all summer, which was very weird. And this is not good for the players ultimately. Like, Terrence Mann's probably like, wow, I'm untouchable, but then Ty Lue doesn't play me enough. So it's just very annoying, I think, when they're this far off. Now, this past season, I think after we got James Harden, it was kind of like, and Terrence Mann was starting, I think it felt like there was a compromise, and I didn't hear any reports or rumors about the difference of opinion there. But I have to say, I'm just first of all, I'm just not happy with how Lawrence Frank has done. I haven't been very critical of him until the last year, but trading for James Harden when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George hadn't really proven that they could stay healthy. I think giving up another an unprotected first rounder to make our team older was a mistake. I also think that signing Russell Westbrook when you were never really committed to him, looking back, was a mistake because that ended up just being more drama. We could have just let Bones have that backup role. And again, people are going to be wondering, well, your team wouldn't have been as good without Harden. Your team wouldn't have been as good with Bones instead of Westbrook. I understand, but we still would have had expiring contracts and a little bit more flexibility at the deadline and maybe get something that we needed a little bit more. But again, the players wanted a point guard. The players have been very adamant about this, but then I guess, as I said, Lawrence Frank is the one that didn't want Westbrook to be that point guard. So there's just been too much of that, in my opinion. But moral of the story for me, that Ty Lue being extended is not a bad thing. All the people that criticize Ty Lue, like, I'm sorry. I want to say 90+% of the time. 90+. There is a 10% of people that I think actually kind of know basketball and criticize Ty Lue and don't want him. But I think to those people that say, who do you guys have in mind to replace him? Like, you think there's a guy that's just out there that's better? Like, I would like to hear names. But besides that, the other 90, they often just have the same recycled criticisms that every other team has about their head coach. I don't like his rotations. He doesn't run any set plays. They don't run an offense. Like, why do they play this guy over this guy? Like, it's very basic analysis. It's not understanding the NBA these days. And I think Ty Lue, he's not the most creative offensive coach. He's pretty good offensively, but he's not the most creative. We don't run a ton of creative sets. But also, he has a team that's an isolation team. What's he supposed to do? Make James Harden come off and stagger screens all the time off the ball? Make Kawhi Leonard run all over the place? Like, it's just not going to happen. Cut constantly. It's just, we're not a movement team, as he said. Oh, I also forgot about Isaiah Hartenstein and John Wall, that whole thing with Lawrence Frank. That was because, again, the players wanted a point guard so bad. But, yeah. So I think I'm okay with it. I'm happy with it. I'm just kind of neutral on it. You know what I mean? It's like, if they extended him, they extended him. If they didn't, they didn't. He was still going to be our coach next year, in my opinion. So he's back. Ty Lue, $14 million per year for 5 years. Let me know how you feel in the comments. But coming up, what does it say about the team next year? And what else was added to all the reports on Wednesday? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So the closer you get to the event, the lower the price is, and that will be key for snagging some. I mean, NBA Finals tickets are going to be expensive regardless, but to get a solid deal on them, because we know how ridiculous they could be, Game Time is the place to be. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, and get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you can kind of get a feel of where you're going to be and what you're going to be looking at. Just take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so back talking about Ty Lue getting extended. The report attached to the Ty Lue news was that the Clippers front office is now going to look forward at the next goal, which is to get Paul George and James Harden re-signed to new contracts. And so that just tells you right there what we've already known. They're running it back because they know they have no choice. So expect another year of Kawhi, Paul George, James Harden. We'll see what happens with Russell Westbrook. He's got that player option. We'll see what he wants to do. Does he want to leave Los Angeles? As Law Murray said when he came on the show, kind of unlikely that he would want to leave LA and his friends. But does he have somewhere better for him? I don't know. I truly don't. Running it back means that the Clippers are putting all their eggs into the if Kawhi's healthy basket again. So, yeah, I mean, I do think Ty Lue's the right guy for them. That's the guy that they want. And he's obviously a championship coach. And again, I'm going to repeat for the millionth time, I don't blame Ty Lue for our losses. Look, he started PJ Tucker. That was a horrible decision in Game 6. There are questionable decisions that Ty Lue makes. He is not, free of criticism. But in the playoffs, again, New Orleans, Zion was out, they got swept. The Bucks, Giannis was out, they lost to the Pacers. The Knicks fell apart, and they lost to Indiana. The Cavs lost Donovan Mitchell, they didn't win another game. The Heat lost Jimmy Butler, they got beaten by double digits in every single loss in 5 games by the Celtics. Am I forgetting anybody? Kawhi Leonard, injured, out. It is very hard to win a playoff series without your number one option, which is again why I like to say, even though it was 2 games, don't forget what Paul George did. I'm not using that as defense for Paul George now. I'm saying that as defense for Paul George's legacy as a Clipper, and as in his entire career criticism. But right now, Paul George doesn't get any passes at all. For people that are wondering, oh man, would you want to bring back Paul George? There is not going to be anybody better out there. We can pay Paul George because we have his bird rights, and I don't know. There's no alternative, There's not much of an alternative. You're not going to get someone better than Paul George on the market. You're not. And you're probably going to have to trade to even replace somebody or to replace him. We're just going to have to pay him at this point. The question is, as we've talked about in the previous episodes, how much does he want and how much is Philly willing to pay? Because I've been seeing a lot of Philly stuff on the timeline on Twitter about them trying to go all in to get Jimmy Butler back. So if I'm the Sixers, I would much rather get Jimmy Butler, of course. But Paul George might be, because the thing is, Jimmy Butler is on a contract. They would have to trade for Jimmy Butler. Paul George can opt out of his, 45 million, 49 million that he's got on that last year, or 47 million, and then they can offer him a bag if they want. So we'll see. And then as far as James Harden's concerned, so if you're wondering how much roster flexibility can the Clippers get, or can the Clippers have if they re-sign those two? Not much. They would have to take pay cuts along the lines of James Harden getting no more than $30 million per year for 3 years, and then Paul George the same. But I'm hearing that Paul George doesn't want. I think the Clippers don't want to offer Paul George more years on the deal than they've already offered Kawhi. Paul George is going to try to get whatever he can. And so, moral of the story, the Clippers are running it back. And they're going to try to re-sign Paul George and James Harden in the coming weeks. And be prepared for that news, Clipper Nation, whether you're for it or against it. I'm saying this, if you're pro run it back, then you got to re-sign Paul George. Like, James Harden as a second option is not going to win you a championship. I already think that he's not going to win as a third option. But this season in particular, if we're just talking this season, James Harden of the 3 stars gets the least blame for me. I mean, you can't blame Kawhi for being injured, but it's just like he was not available. And availability is the best. What is it? That's the saying. I'm forgetting that cliche. The best ability is availability? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that's what it is. How am I having such a brain fart like that? Yeah, it is. The best ability is availability. So Kawhi Leonard, like, he's the biggest issue right now. That his body's letting him down. But James Harden was the least of the 3. I still don't believe in him, though, to win a ring. And as a second option, hell no. So you need to bring Paul George back. Paul George has all his issues as well. It's a flawed team, but... And I don't think Paul George is taking a pay cut, by the way. He's going to have to take less than Kawhi to get, roster flexibility to try to get under that second apron. It's not going to happen. We re-sign those guys. We're going to be over the second apron. We're not going to have anything but minimum contracts to fill out the rest of the roster. We're going to have to get a little creative on the, with trades and stuff. But that's what the reality of the situation is. But yeah, coming up next season, what changes? When we're talking about running it back, what can change next year to elevate the Clippers' ceiling and make them a championship team potentially? Going to be talking about that coming up. All right, so the Clippers looking like they're running it back. Here's the thing. There's going to be a lot of people that are saying, run it back? How could you run it back? This team is old and on the decline. We have no choice, as we've talked about many times. We don't have picks, and we're going into a new arena. And, if for the people that are team run it back, this is what the Clippers should do. They should re-sign Paul and Harden. Try not to give Paul George a ridiculous deal as best you can, which will be hard. And the same goes for James Harden. So something like, if you're talking James Harden, nothing over... It shouldn't be anything over 3 years for me. And then nothing over $35 million per year, I would say. So that would be like let's say it's $35 million for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years, $105 million. I mean, I get it. That's still a lot, but it's today's market, right? So, what changes? The first thing that has to change is that Kawhi Leonard has to be healthy in the playoffs. Now, that's just something you can't really control. However, the knee inflammation, right? He was playing the 4 and 5, and again, it's positionless basketball today, but let's put it like this. As the biggest or second biggest guy on the court for us a lot this season. And I just think we need to probably look to moving him to the 3. I don't know how much of a change that's going to make in his body because he's still going to have to chase guys around. And I think whoever he guards is dependent on who the Clippers are matching up with. You know what I mean? We put Terrence on the guy that's the best player on the other team, in terms of creation on the perimeter. And then we'll put Zoo on their big, obviously. And then everyone else, it's kind of we usually put James Harden on the least threatening offensive player. That's what we usually do. So Kawhi will usually guard just the second biggest guy on the floor. And again, it's not a post-up league or anything like that. But Kawhi is often that low man in help underneath the basket when Zoo gets pulled out, or to help Zoo in whatever coverage that we're in, usually drop coverage. And he's very good at it. But it's a lot more jumping and just stuff that might put a little more strain on his knees than we think. So again, that was a consequence of trading for Harden, I guess. So but I don't want to think it's that. It's just sad because in the past, Kawhi even said, and I've always been team, his injuries are freak accidents. But this was not a freak injury. It's just the wear and tear thing. He didn't load manage. So that's another thing. We're probably going to go. What changes? We're going to go back to load managing. And here's the thing. If Dallas wins this championship as a 5 seed, the prioritization of seeding is going to go back down. Because they're going to see it as we can be that too, instead of the fact that it's really just an exception. And they also made big midseason trades that really changed the way their team was. just like the 95 Rockets did. But we'll see. The Dallas Mavericks still have a series to close out, and they have to beat the Celtics to even do that. Again, I've always said it's really hard to win 4 series on the road, and Boston's getting more rest now that Minnesota won Game 4. So, yeah, what changes? We need Kawhi to be healthy. How's that going to change? They might just do load management again. But I think what you can do is try to make him the 3, which means you have to go get a 4, and which means you have to trade someone, and trade someone good. And that is, I don't know. We'll see how that. I'm not here to give you a bunch of candidates right now. That might be a future episode, but that's something they're gonna have to try. Paul George, I really don't know what to say, but like he just needs to be better. But like he is who he is at this point. He's gonna be inconsistent. He's gonna have one night 3 for 13 and the other night 12 for 15. That's just who he is. I don't trust him to go to the basket more anymore. I don't trust him to get the ball in the elbow and be elbow P more. And I don't trust him to clean up any of the stuff defensively that when he has those brain lapses off the ball and be like more alert on that end. I don't think that he's learned anything from this playoffs. I think he's just going to come back and do the same stuff. So like I don't think anything changes there. I don't think James Harden's going to change. He's still going to be on the ball a lot. Still going to be shooting those step back threes. He's still not going to be great defensively. He'll have a solid stretch. Oh yeah, I went off topic. The people that want us to blow it up, here's what we have to do. Paul George, Kawhi, and Harden, they all have to be re-signed. Kawhi's obviously already re-signed. But you have Paul George and Harden re-signed, and then you wait for us to like have a little good stretch in the regular season, which is inevitable because we still have, with those 3 on the roster, you can still be a 50-win team. But the question is, will they be as healthy in the regular season as last year? Because they were pretty healthy, and they're only getting older. That's another thing. And then I would sell high. Because all of them, they could help someone out. Like you can't tell me that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George especially can't be helping a team out. When their stock is high, I would just trade them and get as many picks as you can. But that's for team blow it up. As far as what changes next year with the running back, James Harden and Paul George are who they are. Russell Westbrook, I don't think there's any changing the situation with him on the bench. He's going to be erratic. He's not going to be happy some games. He's going to be energetic some games that go well for him. But nah. Norman Powell's going to be the same. You got to try to get a 4 and get – I don't know how you can get younger, though. Like, what players can you bring in that are young and can contribute right away? That's something that they might have to look at. Brandon Boston, is he coming back? Are you going to play any of the young guys like Kobe Brown and Jordan Miller and Moussa Diabate? I truly don't know. It's hard for me to – my point is, so the moral story is I don't know how much can change. The only thing you want to hope for is that Kawhi can stay healthy and we can go get a 4. I don't know how that's going to happen. Hopefully Terrence Mann doesn't have a huge slump to begin the season. Zubats can keep getting better. Are we going to give the ball more to Zoo and feed him? I hope that changes. We feed the ball more to Zoo throughout the regular season, so it becomes more of a point of emphasis. But yeah, that's what I have to say on that. So moral of the story, I don't know how much is going to change with the running back situation. Just got to hope for good health. That's all for me in this one, though. Let me know what you think of the Ty Lue extension. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more NBA, LA sports, LA Clipper, and NBA history content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, there'll be probably some rapid-fire episodes coming out the next couple of days. Sorry I was not posting as much as I should. After the Clippers got eliminated, that's on me. I got to be better. But I appreciate all the people that continue to listen. I know a lot of people are kind of checked out, but I do appreciate those that continue to listen. And we'll have you covered for LA Clippers stuff all summer long right here on Locked On Clippers. Make sure you hit the notification bell, as I say, because you'll know every single time we post a video. Let's get to 6,000 subscribers and keep on passing these other teams, because the one thing about Clipper Nation is that we are alive and well and more present than anyone thinks, and we have a much bigger fan base than people realize. So keep on hitting that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and let's get 6K. The age-old proverb continues, and congrats, Ty, on the extension. Go Clippers.